Yeah, we're all about a good time. Yeah, we're all about a good life. You won't believe it till you see. This is gonna be a fun ride. Yeah, we're all about a good time. Yeah, we're all about a good life. Good energy, come follow me. Oh, it's gonna be a good night. You won't believe it. You won't believe it. Believe it. You won't believe it.
All right. Good morning, everyone. If you could all kind of move this way, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a few minutes here at the start of the morning to plan some of the sessions for later today. We have 13 minutes to be precise. So we have a couple of microphones around. As I mentioned yesterday, we left some of the time unscheduled today to try to dive into issues that we thought we needed to get more specific on or cover off on that we weren't handling in the topics that we had scheduled previously. So there were a couple that were written in some of the rooms. There was one that had been added here with an Etherpad to back it up, and so these are the ones that are currently listed in the Etherpad. So if you go to the schedule page, the link to the Etherpad is at the top of the schedule page. The top one is about reference architectures and use cases, and I think that that's one that we should definitely schedule because that seems to be a topic that came up in a lot of the sessions, and we kind of went around in circles a little bit in some of them, and so I think that that's a good one. Does anyone object to definitely putting that on the schedule? All right, cool. So we're going to put that one on there, and Michael and Paul started an Etherpad that's linked in here that actually has a pretty decent start on what some of the different categories of use cases. For me, what I think would be really useful to get out of that is not necessarily like 100 different specific examples of where you might have an edge deployment, but more of the categories and the differences between them. Yes. So okay, good. I think that's going to be an important one, and we can put that at. Let me see what the time slots are. We can put that in this room at 12:45, right after lunch. So I'll update the schedule. Okay. So then on these other ones, I think that one of the other things that I heard is that a lot of the discussions dived pretty quickly into OpenStack specific or Nova specific kind of use cases, and so I think there were some other topics that people wanted to get into, things like networking or containers or completely different types of approaches to it. So maybe we can throw out some ideas along those lines, and I see that we have a speaker
regarding reference architectures, just a quick shout out. Right after this, Sriram and I are presenting on a reference architecture, level 2.
Okay, cool. So level 2, this is one of the breakout seminars that we're doing. Sorry, I'm having Etherpad problems here. So are there any topics that are non-Nova centric that people want to dive into? Things like networking stacks or looking at which open networking technologies people are using, like OpenContrail or Calico or Open Daylight or anything like that. Anyone want to get into those topics? No. Oh, we got one hand back here.
Qasim, and I can do it here or?
Okay, so you are interested in covering networking stacks?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that one on level 2. I'll put put that at 12:45 on level 2. Okay, there was a hand over here that I didn't see, I guess. Where? Okay. All right. The other thing that someone mentioned this morning was multi-region networking. I don't know if that's something that should be rolled into that session or should have its own separate session. Does anyone have any feelings about that? Separate? Okay. Well, we'll put that one at 2 p.m. on level 2. I don't know. Somebody is typing this in here. Whoever is typing, do you want to? Rob Hirschfeld.
Yes. So I didn't put in container systems, but the question I would see as a natural one based on conversations is, do we want to talk about Kubernetes specifically for the edge cases, or do we want to keep it generic to containers? And so what I thought to add it as a subsection, so it'd be a topic included.
Yeah. So I went through all of the Etherpads, and there were many mentions of Kubernetes. There were a couple of mentions of Mesos. I do think that Kubernetes is probably the one that seems to have the most momentum, at least among the people here. So if we want to talk about Kubernetes specifically, and I think your question was, are we talking about Kubernetes on OpenStack or using it to containerize the control plane? I think it's actually completely open, which is that there may be cases where you're running Kubernetes on bare metal or on small nodes on the edge, and OpenStack, in terms of like a VM type cloud is not involved at all. I think that was one of the things that we didn't get to yesterday that's probably worth discussing. So does anybody want to, chime in on this? Should we focus on Kubernetes specifically or talk about multiple container systems? And does anyone want to lead this? All right, Andrew. Okay, do you think it should just be Kubernetes or?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Righty, we can put this one at 2 p.m. on level 1 here. So that's 4 that we have scheduled out. Standards. Does anyone want to talk standards? Beth mentioned it yesterday, and so I don't know if we. Okay.
I'm in my session too.
Sorry, go ahead.
I will also cover some standards and as well as the regional networking in my session as well.
Okay. Do you think that we need a separate session for standards specifically, or does anybody feel like they want to spend a whole session on standards? Going once, going twice? No? Okay. Yeah. Go to Mehmet's session. All right. So these last ones here, I'm not sure who added these in. If anyone wants to claim them, Rob. Okay.
I can't do afternoon. So if people are interested in doing this, I could do like the 12:45, and that's about as late as I could go.
Okay.
But
what's the concept here?
So this came up in one of the sessions yesterday. The idea is that we're dealing with problems that are very similar to what scale data center software developers are dealing with A/B test patterns and continuous deployment for rollouts. And so the idea was to discuss how those applications, techniques, and tools could be applied into 1,000, 10,000 node distributed infrastructures where we actually have to update the management plane and the infrastructure from that perspective.
Jonathan,
Yes.
could that roll into session 1? Because that should be one of the considerations for Edge, is the sheer number and the kind of problems you're going to have. If that's not reflected in your reference architecture, your technical term screwed.
My thought on that is it's really management process, not reference architecture. So
Yeah. I could see it both ways, but I do think that the management is a little bit different than trying to identify just like what are the categories of edge deployments that we have. So I think that keeping the scope of the first one to just like defining the categories, not necessarily how you're going to run it and manage it over the long term, might be beneficial. Okay, I can put this one at 1245 on level 3, if that works for you, Rob. Okay. Okay, so this is Andrew. Who was doing the networking stacks one? And multi-region networking. Somebody signed up for that, right? No? Does anyone want to sign up for this? All right. I'm going to put your name on it for now. What is your name? Dylan. D-I-L-L? Okay. All right. So we have one space left, and we have 2 minutes. Does anyone have an itching topic that they want to bring up? We don't have to fill all of them either, but. So at the end of the day, we're going to get back together here and go through the next steps that we have found in the various sessions. Okay, yes, and at the top here, I mentioned yesterday that some people were wanting to be able to get in touch with each other, so we put together a Google Sheet. It's public, it's opt-in. At least, yes. You don't have to put anything in there, but if you want to be able to find each other or whatever, feel free to add something in there. And Jonathan, yes, it is public, so, but at least we're honest about it, not like Equifax, right?
Jonathan, if we do have one more slot, number 1 is probably a hot ticket item. Could we continue 1 into the second slot as well? Unless the second slot is also at 1245, in which case it won't work.
There is so what I'll do is we have something else coming in here at 1245 right now,
okay.
Which I think the networking stacks one is important. But we can leave the open spot at 2 on level 3 if we want to continue that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, that was the purpose of this kickoff session. For those of you who have signed up or been sort of volunteered for one of these, please create an Etherpad and put the link in here, and we'll go update the schedule on the web too, so everybody can find it in that one spot. We have 2 breakout seminars now on level 2 and level 3, and then right after that we have another thin control plane session, a session on networking failures and handling those, and then a session on security. So that's it, and thank you, and let's go have another good day.